call the special meeting of City Council to order. Tuesday, March 17th, 2020. We're roughly a little bit past 1 o'clock. The Trade and Transit 2 Center, 3rd floor, Williamsport. Please rise for the flag salute and roll call. Well, no roll call. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 2, limited courtesy of the floor. We've had no request to address any agenda items, so we'll move to item 3, which is the declaration of disaster.
Excuse me, I requested time to speak to the body before.
Well, the limited courtesy of the floor is for agenda items, but then there's a period after.
Yeah, this is for an agenda item, because I understand the agenda.
Okay. Which item is it?
Declaration by the mayor's declaration.
The emergency declaration?
Yes.
Okay. Just name and address, please.
Elliot Weiss, 108 Grampian Boulevard, Williamsport. I realize this meeting has occurred on short notice, and I thank you for allowing me to speak. Within the next few months or longer, we face significant challenges. We face health and economic crises. The coronavirus, according to some, will affect 40 to 60% of our population. The CDC, in order to curb the effects of this virus, suggests limiting groups of gatherings of 10 or less. Some of them even suggest smaller groups. Toward the end of April, the Nazis want to meet in Brandon Park. The expected number is supposed to be 50. However, in addition to these people, we will have law enforcement personnel of considerably more than that to protect our community, as well as those expected to gather. Law enforcement personnel are going to face some significant challenges as a result of the coronavirus. In many areas, law enforcement is expected to enforce quarantines, distribute food, maintain law and order, and generally to protect the public. Law enforcement will be under a great deal of stress. This gathering by the Nazis makes their job impossible. I urge you to withdraw the Nazis' permit and not reschedule or attempt to reschedule this event until the coronavirus epidemic passes. Thank you.
You're welcome. That is not on our agenda today, so we won't be voting on it. It's not an item that we have. And
Is the 250 people?
That is a resolution we're going to have later.
Yes.
Yeah.
Isn't
And but their permit has nothing to do with.
Well, if you reduce the
And that will be an item
to
for the
10.
administration to handle. We won't handle that.
but if you reduce the number from 250 to 10, it takes care of this.
Then we'll move to, now we'll move to item 3, declaration of disaster emergency. Chief Killian, would you briefly address this for the public?
Sure. So real briefly, before you is a declaration of disaster emergency for the city of Williamsport, effective today moving forward. Give you a little background. Upon the state and the federal government instituting declarations of disasters, the onus falls on us from a local level to initiate our disaster declaration. The county initiated theirs yesterday, so this provides us with access to funding for any COVID-19 related expenses, and also provides us with the ability to purchase any necessary materials for the pandemic without having to go through bid processes. Gives us, from a city official standpoint, a little bit more flexibility in dealing with the time-sensitive nature of potential issues with the pandemic. There is, I just verified too, there is no end date. The end date of this declaration will be upon when PEMA, the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Association, closes this disaster declaration. So for them, it will be a begin date of March 6th to an end date at their discretion, which will basically be the window for funding for that declaration.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions or comments from council members?
Do we do a motion to second this?
Well, we don't have a resolution yet.
Okay.
So,
What's this?
Wait, this is declaration.
This is a declaration? Yeah.
yeah, it's a declaration, but
We don't need a resolution, do we, to accept the declaration?
can we just vote on the declaration?
Just a resolution approving the declaration.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay.
So we'll have to write a resolution as we, yeah, well, we did just find out about this, so.
So what we're looking for is a resolution approving a
Declaration of disaster
disaster emergency.
for the city of Williamsport.
Norm, help us out here.
Okay. Be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Williamsport that at a special meeting held on Tuesday, March 17, 2020, the declaration of disaster emergency for the City of Williamsport is hereby approved, and the appropriate city officials are authorized and directed to sign the same.
We'll get that fine legal knowledge.
Yeah.
So I will propose that we accept the resolution as outlined by Solicitor Reason.
Yes.
So moved.
There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion, comments? If not, we'll have the vote, please. Mrs. Frank?
Mr. Yoder?
Yes.
Mr. Mackey?
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi?
Yes.
Mrs. Katz?
Yes.
Mr. Banks? Ms. Mealy?
Yes.
Mr. Allison?
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Mrs. Frank, and thank you, Chief Killian. We move to item 4, resolution regarding coronavirus public restrictions. This is dealing with the original proclamation that Mayor Slaughter introduced and that we voted on at our last meeting. His authority expires after today for that original period, so it's up to council to extend it if needed. And of course, under the circumstances, we are going to extend it, but with one change in there.
You want me to, I can
Yes.
look something up for the record. Norm, okay, check. Norm, please help me out if I forget something that needs to be in there. Like that last little paragraph you put at the end of this. All right, a resolution continuing public restrictions surrounding the coronavirus epidemic. Whereas in view of the global coronavirus crisis and the threat to health and safety that it poses on a local level, City Council is declaring under our emergency powers that no large gatherings, events, or conferences of 50 individuals or more will be allowed within the City of Williamsport. This restriction will apply to all property within city limits and at all hours. This does not apply to schools. Be it hereby resolved that this prohibition is effective immediately and will be continued through Thursday, April 2nd at midnight, and may be extended on or before that date at City Council's discretion. Anything else?
No.
Okay. I'll move that item.
I'll second.
Is the motion and second discussion from council or questions?
extended before that time period expires.
Yeah, exactly. The idea is to get ourselves through the next publicly scheduled
Mhm.
meeting that we'll have with council, which is on April 2nd. And then if at such a time we need to extend the restrictions further, then we'll be happy to do it.
Yeah. Obviously, it's a very fluid situation, changing daily on the federal level and the state level. So we're trying to fit into those different edicts and proclamations and everything else and meet our needs in Williamsport. Well, Mrs. Frank on the vote, please.
Mr. Yoder?
Yes.
Mr. Mackey?
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi?
Yes.
Mrs. Katz? Mr. Banks? Ms. Mealy?
Yes.
Mr. Allison?
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Mrs. Frank. Before we go to item 5, I'm going to ask for a motion from council that we suspend the rules. Thank you, and we want to enter in a new item 5, which will be a resolution to commit to funding and/or to borrow and authorize city representatives to act on behalf of the city for financing of the Williamsport flood control project. Mrs. Frank, in short form, please.
I don't have, oh, here it is, okay. A resolution to commit to funding and/or to borrow and to authorize city representatives to act on behalf of the city of Williamsport for financing of the Williamsport Flood Control Project.
Thank you, Mrs. Frank. Is there a motion? Motion? And a second. Thank you. Mr. Winder, welcome.
Good afternoon. Before you is a resolution to submit for grant opportunity through the Economic Development Administration Disaster Recovery Grant. This would assist with the levee system in the Dewey Avenue area. It would replace the eye wall to the T wall to meet stability standards. The county submitted for a grant of the same standards earlier, or the middle of last year, Shannon? Middle of last year, and were successful in receiving it. Then another round had come out due to extra funding, and it was suggested that the city of Williamsport would go after this round to be able to achieve as much as we possibly can with the eye wall, T-wall area. The grant would be for roughly $4.8 million with a local match of $800,000. With speaking with the finance department, we could use existing bank borrowing, municipal co-op agreements, and Act 13 funds. This would be a 5-year project. So we would have some time to get the co-op agreements and all of the definite amounts of money locked in place. Shannon is here. The county has been heading this entire project, and she's more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Winder. Ms. Katz.
When we met with the county with When we met with the county with this, it was a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
This was not on our agenda. This was going to be probably the last piece of the puzzle with the levy, right? And because this money became available, that it was, there's extra money, whoever thought there'd be extra money, that we could go after this. Our biggest question was, where were we going to get the $800,000 to commit to this project? We really wanted to commit to this project because where else are we going to get over the $4 million? And like I said, this was not on our agenda to do.
The issue is that the first grant was given out to the county, and the concern by officials would be that they would not give a second grant to the same entity. The other issue is that this is under disaster relief funds, which is the 2018 disaster relief funding opportunity that came through from the federal declaration. And that means that's 80-20, as opposed to a regular Economic Development Administration grant, which is 50-50. So with this opportunity, we can leverage additional funding with less match. The other issue too with this is, as Adam pointed out, you do not have to have your funding in place in order to apply. But because of the time frame, we were not aware there would be additional disaster relief funds. We were anticipating having to apply for the 50-50, which is infrastructure funding from EDA. So with this opportunity, with there being some money left in that disaster relief fund, anybody who was declared under that disaster relief initiative in 2018 is eligible to apply for this funding. So it's not guaranteed, but it was highly suggested that the city try to apply and leverage that funding. And just as we've been doing under our MOU with the city, the staff will be working with Adam and Chris and everybody at the city to help put the application together. We're using our consultants, Keller and Wood, to help with the application. And we will also be making sure that, all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed as much as possible, just like we have been doing. So it's not like Chris and Adam will have to do it all themselves. We'll be assisting with that and using our own consultants and basically running everything through the city, before you guys apply, to make sure that we have everything accurate.
I know Wood is has a lot of the information already, so filling out the application shouldn't take.
Well, it is technical, and they have information from the Memorial Avenue project, which is similar but not the same. And the issue with the Dewey Avenue project is that it's more technical because you have a bridge over top. There is 1,300 feet of earthen levee that has to be fixed. And then also we have to deal with PennDOT. I mean, we do have to deal with PennDOT Memorial Avenue, but it's not to the degree that we will have to deal with Dewey Avenue. So that's why this cost is higher, which the more we find out, the better it is that we try and get this grant rather than try to wait and hold off.
When we looked at everything that had to be involved with this, like you said, this is more complicated and this is why we were hoping this would be the last, but because of the money issue, having this money available is going to be such a godsend.
Mm-hmm.
There is also a time limit on this.
It's a 5-year grant once we get it.
Well, no, to get the application in.
Oh, we have to have the application in before the end of March, or
Right.
we potentially lose out.
Exactly.
And that was the time frame. That's why I asked you to come over when I did and have, and we tried to explain that with our consultant, because normally, this isn't a normal opportunity. This is hey, we have additional funds that hasn't been expended yet. Before there is a date when that funding opportunity will end. So before that date ends, anybody that's in that declaration can apply for it. So it's not guaranteed, but we think that there might be enough money that we could get that $4 million from EDA.
I mean, we're excited that we can possibly do this because it's going to be a savings. Looking at the resolution, there is no money mentioned in here, and I think the resolution should state, let's see, what does it state here? The 20% in cash, but we should.
It's a $4 million grant with an $800,000 match.
Right, and this is not in the resolution.
It just talks about matching 20%.
Right.
Okay.
Right, and the only thing is, we don't know if we'll get the $4 million.
I'm not sure if they did it like that because of, maybe it's going to be 4.1 or maybe it's going to be 3.8. I'm not sure.
Right, the resolution was based off the recommendation of Mr. Keller,
Okay.
who is actually submitting the grant itself.
On our behalf.
Yeah, on our behalf.
On the city's behalf.
Yes.
Can we accept that? Like that? It's fine. We don't know what it is. Sometimes when you look at 20% of what's 20%. Yeah, exactly,
If I'm
exactly.
correct, Shannon, the amount that you could actually go for was higher than the 4 million. That was just a suggested number for us.
The number was suggested to us based upon the amount of money that was left over.
Okay,
So, and knowing that our consultant is going to be, Wood is going to be looking at those numbers to verify that that is the amount we need to request.
okay.
So that's what we're basing those numbers off of, because we know it's gonna cost more than Memorial Avenue.
Right, right.
And we were told to increase when the county applied for the first EDA grant, that's a $5.6 million grant that we got from EDA. And the county's matching that with 1.4 million. So that was even, EDA had told us to up our request because they felt that our original request wasn't enough. So that's why we had upped the cost of Memorial Avenue to 3 million initially inside that grant. And this is, the Dewey Avenue portion is for the eye wall to change to a T-wall, and then to improve the earth and levee portion to be consistent with all the regulations.
Okay.
So,
Does everybody know who Shannon is by any, okay, did everybody get to meet Shannon? Okay. This was Fran McJunkin's replacement.
no, I'm not.
But
I'm
she's
Kurt
doing-
Hausman's replacement.
Kurt. But you're doing a lot of what Fran McJunkin was doing, too.
Right, and John Lavelle is Fran McJunkin's replacement now.
Oh, okay.
So
Oh,
he's
okay.
now deputy director, and I am the current director.
Okay,
So,
fantastic.
yes. Yeah.
Great job, great job.
If you have any questions, feel free to call me.
Okay.
Thank you. How much, oh,
I did have one further question, just related to the timing of attempting to secure the match from partner communities. Is that something that we should be doing while we wait to see if the grant's been awarded?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Right now, our first thing is just to get this grant in.
Right.
And then we will work with city staff and council members to go out and talk to different entities to see about coming up with additional match funds.
Okay. But so we should be working
That's the
on the
next
base
step.
amount of $800,000
Yes.
and attempting to locate that much match funding,
Yes.
even if we're not entirely certain what the final award will be.
Right.
Okay. All right, just wanted to clarify, and so, all right, sounds good. Thank you.
anyone else? Comment, question? Hearing none on the motion, Mrs. Frank, please.
Mr. Yoder?
Yes.
Mr. Mackey?
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi?
Yes.
Mrs. Katz? Mr. Banks?
Yes.
Ms. Mealy? Mr. Allison?
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Mrs. Frank, and thank you for discussing this with us. We'll move to what is item 6 now. Discussion about future meetings. It's more of an information item. I think we've considered all the different moving parts and everything for council meetings and committee meetings, and would anybody care to share their thought on moving forward? I think we're definitely going to cancel our council meeting this Thursday. There's nothing on there that, now that we've handled this item, that requires us, has a timestamp on it, that would fall beyond that meeting to the next meeting, which the next meeting, regular council meeting after that would be April 2nd. And we're not canceling all council meetings going forward, but this Thursday, it seemed prudent to do that, given all the fluid situations out there. And also that we've passed, extended the mayor's original proclamation. We also have the governor's proclamations and the federal, so everything's kind of covered for right now. We don't know what's gonna happen going forward. All that can change. I think everybody knows that. So Any discussion from council members about that? Okay, it's not really a voting matter, but
It's not really a voting matter, but then my understanding would be that we are at this point planning to hold a meeting on April 2nd at 7:30, just in terms of the next item on the agenda, which would be announcements.
right,
Trying
yeah.
to figure out precisely which ones we're making.
Yeah.
There will certainly be the regularly scheduled council meeting on April 2nd at 7:30, but, and I think that the upcoming committee meetings will remain scheduled until such a time as they,
Yeah.
for some reason, are canceled by action of council. And I'm just trying to see, it is also worth noting that I believe at this time, have we decided to pull zoning hearing?
We did,
Okay.
yes.
That the zoning hearing board meeting that was scheduled for this coming Thursday at 10:30 will also be postponed, but it's not quite clear for how long, so.
Mhm.
I think with apologies to everyone who is hearing this up and down the scale from the federal government straight on down to the local guys, everything's evolving pretty quickly, and so we'll see as we move forward which meetings will be held and which meetings will be canceled. But for right now, meetings that are scheduled for this week are considered canceled. Meetings for next week we'll be dealing with on an ad hoc basis as we make decisions there. Okay. Anybody else?
Liz, people are asking about Public Works.
Oh, excuse me. The Public Works Committee will meet today at 2:30.
Yes.
But the Finance Committee meeting scheduled for today has been canceled.
Mhm.
And we didn't have any other meetings that were scheduled for later on
No,
today or this week, right?
we canceled public safety before that.
Okay. Let's go ahead and say that we have had no requests for the Committee on Historic Preservation this coming month. Janice, I believe it would be Tuesday at 11 a.m., Tuesday, March 24th at 11 a.m. But we've had no requests for it, so I think we'll go ahead and just figure that we're going to pass on that one too, and see from there. Okay.
And I just add to that, we're in close communication with the administration. They're working on a lot of different issues that probably aren't on people's minds, and they've addressed a lot of those. The city hall's on a emergency kind of staff, just as needed, and also, this is real estate tax time, something nobody wants to think about right now, and there's a lot of implications regarding all of that. So we're very cognizant of situations for people and their financial status, and the administration's working on solutions for that going forward. So like everybody else in the country, we're dealing with the local issues that directly affect us beyond what other things the state and the federal government comes out with. And we'll continue to do that. We'll move to item 7 then, announcements. I need to announce that we had an executive session before this public meeting to discuss legal matters concerning contracts and also restrictions and those kinds of things that we needed to get legal guidance on from our solicitor. So, and I wanted to, Mr. Winder gave me a copy of the temporary bus schedule, RVT bus schedule. Would you like to address that, Mr. Winder?
Starting tomorrow, RVT will run on a temporary bus schedule from 5:30 a.m. to 10 a.m., normal services on all routes. 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., we will follow the Nightline route schedule. If we have a individual that needs to get to a life-saving place, hospital, nursing home, etc., they do have the ability to call in to RVT at the 570-326-2500 number, and we'll accommodate them. Then from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m., we'll go back to normal service on all routes. At 7 p.m., the bus service will shut down, and there will be no Jersey Shore or Tri-Town, or Jersey Shore and Tri-Town services will be normal service on all routes. Clinton County Connector will be normal service on all routes, and the Clinton County Express, no 5:45 a.m. and 5:45 p.m. trips. This is completely for the safety of the employees, their families, and the general public. We are an essential need by the public, but we do have to scale it back some just for those reasons.
So essentially, for people at nighttime, 7:30 to 7 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. there's no service,
Correct.
just so they know that. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Winder. Any other items or comments from council? Mr. Banks?
Just in general, to the public, this is a rapidly evolving situation, and it's hitting everybody at every strata of our society at the same time. We're all affected. So remember to keep checking in with official news sources, so the CDC, the Pennsylvania Department of Health, and be patient with emergency services. Be patient with the hospitals as this will continue to evolve in ways we just don't know yet. So everyone's in this together. So be mindful of one another as we go forward. This will be a difficult time. We don't need to make it any more difficult than it has to be.
Be patient with the grocery store workers, too. Oh, there was a hard meeting tonight.
There's a hard meeting
Oh.
tonight,
There is a hard meeting tonight with
so are you
7.
canceling?
There are no agenda items on the hard. That's been canceled before
Okay.
all of this.
Okay. Harb is canceled. Great. Something you said reminded me of something, but I've forgotten already. So, any items from the administration? And any comments or further discussion from the public? If not, then I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.